We make things. We use our hands, minds, and machines to build, to fix, to improve. We're known as do-it-yourselfers, home improvement fans, fix-it fanatics, inventors. At our core, though, we're all makers. So let's jump in and make something. Hi, I'm Ron Hazelton. Welcome to the show. Sometimes home improvement involves destruction as well as construction. Today I'm going to introduce you to a new tool designed specifically to take things apart. The combination square may be one of the most versatile tools on the planet. In a few minutes, I'm going to show you at least 12 things it can do in the workshop. Replacing a pane of broken window glass may seem intimidating, but it's really not. I'll show you step by step just how to do it. Of course, home improvement projects are all about putting things together, but home remodeling, redecorating, and renovation also often require taking things apart. I'm talking about demolition, and I want to introduce you to a new tool that will make that process faster and easier. This is the floor lifter from Zenith Industries. Yes, it's designed to easily get up old floors, but it does a great deal more. What makes this tool work so amazingly well is this integrated wedge. It does the heavy work so you don't have to. Let me show you what I mean. Used with a hammer, the tool is driven under tough-to-remove ceramic tile. The built-in center wedge applies more and more upward force until the cement bond underneath is broken. Now I've got the long extension handle on here, and I want to show you just how fast and easy the job can go without breaking your back or bruising your knees. The floor lifter is also remarkably efficient when it comes to removing nailed or stapled down wood floors. As the tool is driven underneath the flooring, the integrated wedge pries the board loose from the underlayment. By attaching the extension handle, wood floor removal becomes even faster and easier. Often the floor can be pulled up with the fasteners in place, leaving the boards intact. The floor lifter can also be used to remove subflooring. When it comes to removing trim work, this tool really stands out. It removes molding without damaging either the trim or the wall. It's especially effective at removing wider baseboards. Chair rail, door and window casings, and other moldings come off easily and without damaging the millwork. Adding the extension handle to the floor lifter eliminates the need for a hammer, making baseboard removal even faster and allowing crown molding to be removed without using a ladder. Exterior wood or vinyl siding can also be removed more quickly and easily. If you have an outdated popcorn ceiling, well, this is the perfect tool to remove it. Normally, popcorn ceilings are wet first. This allows the material to release more easily and reduces dust. Using the tool with a painter's extension pole makes it possible to work from the floor and out of the way of falling debris. The floor lifter is a handy tool for leveling base cabinets. Lift the cabinet slightly and slip the edge of the tool underneath. As the end of the tool is tapped, the integrated center wedge lifts the cabinet in small increments until it's level. Insert shims and use the tool as a chisel to cut off the protruding ends. The tool also makes quick work of removing carpet tack strips. As its name implies, this tool excels at lifting floors. But the truth is, it's a standout for any job that requires pulling, prying, or lifting. Leroy Sterrett held about 100 patents for various inventions. His first was a meat chopping machine that he called the Hasher. Reportedly very popular with housewives, the Hasher sold for $5 and claimed to cut 3 pounds of meat in 3 minutes. In 1878, Leroy Sterrett invented the combination square. Now, since then, the L.S. Sterrett Company has manufactured millions of these. To my way of thinking, this is one of the most versatile measuring tools you can have. Perhaps the most common use of the combination square is to mark a straight line perpendicular to the edge of a board. The tool also makes it simple to draw lines parallel to the edge of a board. Moving the head a set distance will create multiple lines that are spaced an equal distance apart. Using a combination square makes it quick and easy to lay out a rectangle with specific dimensions. Or mark a continuous line around 4 sides of a post or beam for accurate cutting. By replacing the combination square's standard head with a center head, it's possible to quickly and accurately find the center of a circle, or the center of a dowel or rod. Power miter saws are great work and time savers. However, they can go out of calibration, producing crosscuts that are not precisely 90 degrees. The combination square can be used to verify and, if necessary, recalibrate the saw and to check the resulting cut. The same is true for a 45-degree miter, one of the most common angles cut on this saw. The miter side of the combination square head is a precise gauge for checking accuracy of this angle, which is critically important in making frames and cabinets. Bevel cuts on the power miter saw can also be checked using the combination square. Even though most table saws have stops at 90 degrees, these can be inaccurate because of dirt, dust, wear, and incorrect adjustment. Performing a check with a combination square ensures the blade is perfectly perpendicular to the table. To make accurate crosscuts, a table saw miter gauge must be set perpendicular to the blade. Another job for the combination square. The same is true for 45-degree miters made using the table saw miter gauge. One of the jointer's primary tasks is to create smooth, straight edges perfectly perpendicular to the face of a board. The combination square is used as a guide to set the fence and as a gauge to verify that the edge is, in fact, square. When using a router, the combination square allows the bit to be set at precisely the right height. And regardless of how a dado is cut, that same combination square is the perfect tool for measuring the depth of the groove. Now that's just some of the ways that you can use this. When it comes to versatility and accuracy, well, the combination square is a tool you'll always find in my toolbox. I got an email from Dennis. He says, I can't seem to find out how to reglaze window glass. The old putty on each pane is hard and brittle. Well, Dennis didn't wait around for me to get back to him. He went ahead and did the job himself, and he says the results turned out great. In fact, he goes on, this is one of those mysterious jobs that we would pay someone a lot of money to do. When the job is done, I thought, this is just too simple. No harder than making an apple pie. Well, Dennis, thank you for the email. I'm going to incorporate some of your suggestions with my own experience because I've got a window out there that's definitely in need. Well, I'd say this window is a real good candidate for reglazing. Now, the first step in this job is to remove the old material. There are several ways you can do that. I'm going to show you a few and pick the one that works best for you. I'm going to start with a very stiff putty knife. Now, the idea here is to go in on the bottom of the glazing where it contacts the wood and kind of break it loose like that. Now, it helps to file a sharp edge on the end of your putty knife. Now, sometimes heat from a heat gun in combination with a putty knife can work really well because the heat actually can soften this glazing even though it might be really hard from age. Now you can see this works really well. One note of caution here, be careful not to overheat the glass because you can crack it. Now, this is called the putty chaser. It's made by Prozzi, and its sole purpose in life is to take old glazing compound out of windows. It has sort of a flat blade here, like a blunt screwdriver, and it spins and knocks out the old material. Let me show you right here. Well, I got all of this old glazing cleaned off, but I got into a little bit of a rush right here and I cracked a pane. So I put some duct tape on here to keep it from shattering. I'm going to take this out now and replace it. When I'm removing broken glass panes, I protect my hands with leather or Kevlar gloves and my face with a plastic shield. With the masking tape in place on both sides, I tap the glass with the end of my putty knife just enough to make it shatter. Most of the broken pane can lift out in one piece. Well, I've got that pane of glass out, and we're just about ready to replace it and put our window glazing in. But you can see we have a lot of exposed wood right here, and I'm going to paint that with an oil-based primer for two reasons. First of all, this wood is very old and very dry, and I don't want it to draw the oil out of the glazing prematurely, cause it to crack and shrink. Secondly, anything that's exposed here, I want to weatherproof and seal it, and the primer will do that. Now, since this is oil-based paint, I'm going to let it dry overnight, then I'll come back tomorrow, put that glass in, and finish up the glazing. Now, truth be told, most often I just take my measurements down to the hardware store or the glass company and have them cut glass for me. But there are times when I do like to cut my own. So I'm going to do that now, and maybe you'll pick up some tips here that you'll find useful. First thing, of course, is we've got to clean the surface of the glass. And this may sound a little bit silly, but glass that is not clean just simply won't cut very well. It won't score properly. Now I'm going to make my measurements. The width was 8.5. And 8.5 up here. Now, a metal straight edge like this can slip a little bit on glass, so I like to put a piece of tape on the back. This is just masking tape. All right, we're lined up. I'm just going to draw a mark down through here. Now it's time to cut, or actually score the glass. This is a glass cutter. The way I hold this with these teeth or notches facing downward, I place my first finger about right here and then tip it up at about this angle. Now I like to dip the cutter in some oil, acts as a lubricant, get a good grip on my straight edge here, and I'm going to make just one scoring cut. Now, you want to break the glass fairly soon after you score it. And the way I like to do it, just to make sure I get a straight cut is to put a piece of dowel under the score and then press down on two sides. I repeat the process to cut the glass to length. First scoring, then placing a dowel underneath, and finally breaking. Well, there it is. Now sure, I could go out and have somebody else cut this for me, but I have to admit there's a certain amount of satisfaction in doing it myself. Now before I can set this in the frame, I've got to put what I can call, I guess, a bedding coat of glazing putty in here, and that will actually act as a cushion for the glass. Glazing putty is the material that seals glass panes into their frames. I find it easier to use if I first knead it, then form it into a rope shape. Next, I lay the putty into place with my fingers. And finally, use a flexible putty knife to press it firmly onto the lip of the window frame. I set the glass pane in the bed of putty and press around the edges to make sure I get a good seal. This is called a glazier's point, a small metal clip that will hold the glass in place, especially while the putty is drying. I embed these into the wooden frame using a putty knife. With the glass in place, I can now apply more glazing putty to the outside. This will form a weather-tight seal to keep out water and drafts. Dipping my putty knife in paint thinner allows it to glide more smoothly over the surface, leaving it level and neat. The excess putty on the glass lifts off easily. Now this is a product I haven't tried before, window glazing in a caulking tube. Let's give it a shot. The caulking tube nozzle is designed to lay a bead that's just wide enough for the job. This product is water-based, so that's what I'll dip my putty knife in. The material is also a bit thinner and stickier than glazing putty. I might be better off waiting until it has partially set before trying to remove the excess. That turned out pretty well too. You know, I'm not sure which variety I like. On one hand, the old-fashioned kind cleans up a little more easily, but the caulking tube variety certainly does go in easily. You know what I think? You should try both and then choose the one that you like best.
To view today's projects again and countless more, go to HouseCallsDIY.com. Step-by-step home improvement tips when you need them.
I'm Brian Kelsey. Welcome to House Calls.
Join us as we tackle some great home projects, as well as look back at favorites from Ron Hazelton on House Calls.